Yeah, he's fighting Javier Fortuna. I think it's an interesting fight. I think Ryan is a really big guy for his weight, for the weight. He was a super feather and now he's a lightweight. Real tall, brings a little bit of size to the table. Fortuna is a real confusing guy, a guy who can has an awkward style, but a guy who hits a little harder than he looks like he can hit, and he can really give you some problems. It's hard to pick against Garcia in the fight. I think Garcia really gave me another level of impressiveness when he beat Campbell the way he did. Prior to that, I had more questions about Garcia, but I think the way he was able to beat Campbell. I remember Lomachenko said Campbell had come off of COVID, so you have to keep that into consideration. But nonetheless, in a fight where he was having some issues, having some problems against a very good fighter, he was able to figure out a way to mentally overcome that and get the stoppage. So I really think that shows the mentality of a champion as well as the mental pedigree as well, and not quitting on yourself and continuing to go for the win. He was never deterred despite the tough moments he suffered in that fight. I think it's interesting because Fortuna is a bit smaller than Campbell. He's not as naturally big, but I feel like Fortuna has some weirdly dangerous power. Having said that, it's hard to pick against Garcia, but it's another step in the direction of, say, you want to see how he's maturing, how he's improving. Here's the thing about Fortuna, though. Fortuna is a hard guy to look good against. So even if you beat Fortuna, you're risking criticism from all the armchair quarterbacks and the critics and then the media and all the haters and the fans, because Fortuna is a guy, you may beat him, but he's going to give you some problems, and he's going to offset your tempo and your style and your rhythm, because he's got a messed up rhythm himself from the southpaw stance. So I wouldn't be surprised if Garcia doesn't look perfect doing this. I wouldn't be surprised if Fortuna has some good moments in the fight. I would pick Garcia in the fight, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be surprised if people give stupid criticism after the fight as well. But I don't think it's a completely smooth fight for Garcia. And if it is, hey, it's all the more impressive.
Another big guy in 135 is Tank Davis, who moved up 140, now fighting Mario Barrios. Do you think Garcia ready for Tank?
I think Tank is a good fighter, and I think Mario Barrios is probably the best opponent that Tank has fought. Now, you say, okay, who has Mario Barrios fought? Yes, you can say that, but Barrios hasn't fought the level of guys that, say, maybe Pedraza had fought when he fought Tank, right? But I think at this point in Mario Barrios' career, and I'm going on a limb myself and my personal thinking, I think Barrios is a better fighter than Pedraza was at the point when he fought Tank. I think Barrios is. And I think Barrios is a better fighter than a guy like Santa Cruz as well, who kind of comes straight at you and does Tank a favor, who's a smaller guy coming straight at him, I think Barrios is probably the biggest test for Davis. And if he handles Barrios, and whether he can handle Barrios, is going to really give me a better conclusion as to what I think Davis does with Ryan Garcia. If we're even talking about Davis and Ryan Garcia after the Barrios fight, because I think Barrios is good enough to also give enough problems to Davis to beat Davis. Personally, I rated Garcia below Davis before this year, but the win over Luke Campbell, for me, gives Ryan Garcia an upper level. I don't care about the belts that Davis has. I have not yet seen Davis beat a guy of the pedigree of Luke Campbell yet. I have not. I don't think Pedraza was on the level of Luke Campbell, especially the Pedraza Davis fought, who clearly was weight drained. It was very obvious. He hadn't looked good in the Edna Cherry fight, and he looked terrible in the Davis fight. But then he went up to lightweight, and he looked pretty good at that lightweight. So clearly the weight had something to do with the Pedraza fight. But nonetheless, you don't discredit Davis. It's a good win. But having said that, I don't think you can credit that win higher than the Luke Campbell win that Ryan Garcia has. So Davis needs a win like this. Davis needs a win over a guy like Mario Barrios. But Mario Barrios, for me, is a guy who has a youthful enthusiasm still and wants to win just as bad. So I really like this fight. I'll tell you, I really like this fight. Not to have to give any extra promo to my old bosses, but they put together a good fight. Let's
say Tank beats Barrios. And then he's in 140, where Jose Ramirez is, Josh Taylor. Do you think Tank is too small for those guys?
Yeah, I do. I do. I don't think. I don't think Tank is. I don't think Tank can compete at 140. I don't see a reason why Tank should compete at 140 unless he doesn't want to make weight. I mean, if looking at the dimensions of Tank, he should be fighting at 135 pounds for a good while. You know, especially with the danger that is posed at 140 pounds. If he goes up to 140 pounds and gets himself knocked out, it's his own fault. You know, for not being motivated enough to lose the weight. You know, because for me. He probably should stay at 135 for a little while longer. I can see Teofimo going up to 140 pounds. He's a big guy, you know. But I don't see Tank. I don't see a reason for Tank to go up to 140 pounds. Not just for the fact that he's undersized, but for the fact that I don't think he can beat those guys right now anyway, you know. But I do think that 135 pounds is a nice home for him. You know, you can make some nice fights. You got Barrios, you know. Whether he wins or loses against Barrios, you know, you got this fight. You got, are they fighting at 135 or 40 with Barrios?
140.
Oh, they are fighting at 40 with Davis. Oh, yeah, so it's wow. You just threw me off there. Wow. So he's fighting Barrios at 140. This guy's out of his mind. All right. Oh, all right. I mean, we'll see. I can't. Here's the thing. I don't see Davis fighting at 140 for no reason. I mean, not against a guy like this. This is not a cupcake type of opponent. It's not like a let's test out the waters at 140 pounds. With a soft guy, you're going up to 140 pounds and you're fighting Barrios, who to me has been a promising looking guy for a while, and I've been waiting for a moment like this for him for a while. So I'm curious to see him in this kind of fight. You know, I don't know, man. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't like Tank at 140. I don't. I'll be honest. I think he's a good fighter, but I don't like him at 140.
Teofimo Lopez versus Kambosos. Have you had the chance to see the press conference today?
I saw some clips of it, yeah. I heard it got a little bit heated, a little bit wild, yeah. Hey, you know, they're selling the fight. Both guys have a little bit of bad blood because, you know, everything is on the line at this level, you know? So not everybody can handle it in a keeping their emotions in check kind of thing, especially when you're young, you know? When you're young, you're really more of a trash talker, you're more brash. And when you get older, you kind of learn to get your emotions more in check. I think you know, it's par for the course for a guy like Lopez to kind of have these kind of press conferences right now. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with Kambosos, you know, pushing the issue as well. Everything is on the line in this fight. So, you know, they're competitors, and this is what happens sometimes. I think Lopez is the best of the bunch at those weights. I think he's the best of the bunch at those weights. Lomachenko, and I think was the best of the bunch, but he's slightly undersized for a guy like Lopez, okay? Even if you look at Lomachenko's wins at lightweight, they were still over guys who were kind of smaller before, you know? The Luke Campbell was a gold medalist at bantamweight, you know? Jorge Linares was a champion at featherweight and super featherweight, you know? Teofimo was legitimately big lightweight, and it's not just the size, because obviously Lomachenko proved that he can beat natural lightweights, but the combination of lightweight, of the natural size, and the incredible skill Teofimo has, I think was just a little bit too much to overcome. And still, Lomachenko made it a close fight at the end, you know? But nonetheless, I think Teofimo is a guy who is getting bigger, he's getting better, and his resume is better than Garcia, Davis, and Haney's combined. At such a young age, if you combine the resume of Teofimo Lopez, it's better than the resume of Haney, Garcia, and Gervonta Davis combined for me, you know? So, and he's still going after tougher and tougher fights. Kambosos is the mandatory decent fighter, but, you know, he's already looking at Taylor Ramirez winner, you know? He's already looking at these kind of fights. So, you know, to have this kind of mentality at this young of an age when guys are trying to kind of sit on their money and trying to let big fights marinate, like for example, we see Garcia and Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis constantly talking about fighting each other, but they never actually do. You know, at this age, we usually see young guys marinating fights, talking a lot about fights, especially with social media, but they don't actually fight the fights until later. Teofimo is a guy who's going after these guys, you know, and for me, maybe he's not the most popular guy at the weight, but for me, he's certainly the best guy around those weights. You know, now I'm curious to see him at 140 because 140 has some good fighters. 140 has Ramirez, Taylor, Prograis. You know, some good fighters there. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what comes of all this.
How do you see Teofimo doing against either Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez or Regis?
It's it's so tight to pick, you know. But I think he's in all those fights, you know. And the reason it's tight is not a knock on Lopez. It's because those guys are also excellent fighters. Those are excellent fighters. So you know, Lopez is an excellent fighter. Those guys are excellent fighters. It's not that easy of a fight to pick, you know. And just because it's not that easy a fight to pick, it doesn't mean it's a criticism on Lopez. It doesn't mean it's a criticism on Taylor or Ramirez or Prograis. I just think they're hard fights to pick, you know, and I don't think you're wrong picking either guy. But let's see how Ramirez and Prograis wind up looking against each other first. I mean, not Ramirez and Prograis, Ramirez and Taylor, sorry, if they fight each other.
Do you think Teofimo should stay in 135 and fight like Tank, Haney, Garcia, and then move up, or should...
I don't know that he can make the weight, honestly. I don't know that he can make the weight. He was in the Olympics at, 132 pounds, I believe, and that was years ago. Your body is still filling out in your 20s, you know? It's not that easy, you know? It's not that easy. I think if he could, he might, maybe he would, but I really see Lopez as a big lightweight. I question how much longer he can make it. I really think that after the Kambosos fight, he's going to move up. I probably am thinking that he wanted the Kambosos fight just to fight the mandatory, just so he can go into the ring as the undisputed lightweight champion one time, you know, because, you know, being announced as that kind of champion is sort of a feather in your hat, you know. It's not most guys will never achieve that. So to come into the ring as the undisputed lightweight champion is probably something he wanted to hear before he leaves the weight class, you know.
I know a lot of people would say that if Teofimo moves up, that, you know, he's scared, he doesn't want to fight,
Yeah, I mean, people are gonna say those things anyway. I mean, it's easy to from your couch with your potato chips to say those things, you know. But it's not easy to make the weight for Lopez. I really don't think. I really am shocked that he can still make the lightweight limit, you know.
We have another one in lightweight. It's Devin Haney who fighting Linares. What do you think?
I think it's a good fight for Haney as far as it's par for the course for a prospect like him to kind of ease into the next level of opposition and continuing to, you know, showcase himself. And this is the first level of opposition that we're seeing from Haney that anybody will recognize, you know. I've heard rumors that he's tried to fight everybody, but it's a lot of talk and when I would have a better time believing somebody like Haney saying they sent a contract to Lomachenko if Haney was then fighting, I don't know, a Davis or a Ryan Garcia or something. He said, you know, we sent the contract to Lomachenko. But you're saying you sent the contract to fight Lomachenko, but then you're fighting the guy who cleans my grass. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I find it very hard to believe that you're sending contracts to one guy, but then the guys you're fighting are so much below that level, you know? So I would find it easier to believe that he said that he sent the contract to Lomachenko and it was turned down. I would find that easier to believe if in the process he said, okay, this guy didn't want to fight me, but I fought so-and-so or so-and-so who are also a very elite level. But he's not doing that. He has not done that. He said he sent the contract to Lomachenko, and Lomachenko was still the world champion. But then you're fighting the guy who mows my grass. You know what I'm saying? You're fighting the guy I never heard of. You're fighting the guy. It's impossible that you're offering contracts to one guy, but then you're fighting the complete opposite level of an opponent. You know, so that was my issue with Haney. But honestly, for his age and for the level he's on, he's looked good for the level of opposition he's fought, and he's a promising prospect. And I think Linares is a perfect opponent for him at this point. An ex-world champion who was very recognizable, who at one time was elite, and is probably on the slide. And you know, their paths are kind of crossing. Haney's rising, and Linares is dipping. So, you know, you're meeting at your crossroads point, right? So I don't have a problem with this fight at all. I think it's a good fight for Haney, and it'll give us a chance to kind of see where he's at. Keep in mind, Ramiro Cano knocked out Linares in one round. Okay, so Haney has to win this fight, despite it being Linares and despite it being an ex-world champion who is phenomenal at one time. Linares is clearly on the slide. You expect Haney to win, but you need Haney. If Haney's going to make a statement, Haney has to win in a fashion where it's impressive. You can't just beat Linares and say, "Oh, I have a name on my record. I have a name like Linares on my record." No, because Linares, had he not been knocked out in one round in that fight, okay, you say, okay, you're the first guy to do this. But Khan already knocked this guy out in one round. So if you're fighting him, so you have to show us, you don't have to necessarily knock him out in one round, but you have to show us that the pedigree, the level of you're at is clearly very high above a fading ex-world elite champion. That's it.
Do you think Haney has enough power to do that?
No, it's not even really about the power. I can see even if you knock, listen, Linares doesn't have the best chin. He never had the best chin, even in his prime. So whether Haney knocks him out or not, Haney may very well knock him out. But even if Haney doesn't knock him out, it's not just about the power. It's about, are you able to outclass this guy? Are you able to show your levels above a fading ex-world champion? You know, because we know what Linares was in his prime. We also saw what Linares was recently when Conor knocked him out in one round, you know? So, you know, you have to show yourself. You don't have to get the quick stoppage, but show us the level that you're on is of a different level. Show us the level that you're on is elite, the way, you know, you're being marketed and promoted. And, you know, it's possible he can do that. This is what I'm going to be looking for in that fight, you know? This is what I'm going to be looking for. And I don't necessarily expect a knockout, especially coming from me. I can't expect a knockout from anybody. But I'd love to even see him be able to completely outclass this level of opponent and say, okay, you know what? This is my arrival to these kind of names, and I'm going to continue to do this. So we'll see. And here's the thing. Haney was saying this back when Lomachenko was the champion, too. This was not the first time Haney does this. So I don't know, man. To me, I mean, I don't understand. You know, this is the social media generation, so maybe if you don't have to make it, you just have to fake it till you make it. So maybe just all the faking it makes people talk. So he's done a good job of that, you know, by saying he sent these contracts out. It's generated a lot of opinions. There's actually people stupid enough that believed it too. But like I said, for me, even if I don't hear any of it, if you're telling me you're sending contracts to Lomachenko. This is when Lomachenko was still champion. He was already saying these things. You know, he sent the contract to Lomachenko. If you're telling me you're sending a contract to Lomachenko and he turned you down, I still would expect that in order for me to believe you, I would expect you to take on that kind of level of opponent. You know, because, hey, you're saying you're of that level you're sending contracts to guys like Lomachenko when he's a world champion. So if he doesn't take the fight, you're going to substitute him with an opponent of the same level. So, but that's what he didn't do. So that's why, to me, I never believed the story, because if you send the contract to Lomachenko, you have to fight somebody of that same level, or maybe somebody Lomachenko's even beaten, but who put up a good fight on, like a Pedraza, something. You got to find you can't go fight the guy who mowed my lawn yesterday. You know, you can't do that. You can't do that after you said you sent the contract to Lomachenko. So to me, I never believed any of that anyway. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to see proof. The proof is itself in the pudding by the opposition you're fighting. Again, I don't expect Haney to fight this level of opposition either. That's where everything is wrong here. Everybody, the guy's young. He can take his time coming up the ladder, and I think the Linares fight is the correct fight for him. But all the rest is just a mumbo jumbo talk, because, you know, a guy like Haney knows how to play the social media very well. He's young. He's of this generation, and he knows how to play well. And you have to recognize how many stupid people there are out there, you know, who are just groupies and just want to believe everything a guy says when they're a fan of his. So, but in reality, I never believed that he sent a contract to Lomachenko just because of the level of opposition he was fighting. Like I said, it's not the same Linares that dropped Lomachenko. Linares, was knocked out in one round by Ramiro Cano after all this. So, you know, you're still fighting Linares post Ramiro Cano 1-round knockout, you know? But again, it's a good fight for him at this point. You don't expect him to fight a guy like Linares in his prime right now. I wouldn't, you know? People talk a lot of shit, but I wouldn't. I would still expect him to fight a fading ex-champion and see how he handles him. So, for me, it's the right fight at the right time for Haney, and then you move up, you continue to move up. He's a young guy. You don't have to put him in with guys in their prime just yet, you know? But it's definitely not the Linares that fought Lomachenko. It's the Linares that has already been knocked out by Cano in one round.